Hey, good evening and welcome to our Valentine's Day Story Slam. Thanks for being here. I want to thank the teachers that kind of gave up tonight's class so we could do this all together. I want to thank the couples that have agreed to be a part of this and tell a chapter of their story. Not their whole story by any means, just a chapter of their story. The theme tonight is, what's love got to do with it? And so you're going to be hearing some different chapters from some different Valentine's-type love stories here at Bay Area. And I think probably the easiest way is just to go this way. Chet and Rachel Duke, Mike and Angie Manley, Daryl and Portia Alderman, and Jen and Jeremy Shelton will be sharing some stories tonight. And then I'll wrap it up at the very end. But we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to get right into it. So let me introduce to you Chet and Rachel.
All right, I've been told we're sitting. So I'm Chet.
And I'm Rachel.
We have been together for almost 15 years now, but married 10 years since December. And we talked a little bit about what story we wanted to share. And I'll do, I guess, most of the talking unless she wants to fill in the gaps. But I guess if we had a title for this story, I would say it is The Moment I Knew. So I'm telling this largely from my perspective. So we started dating in October of 2010. We were in college. We'd met through some friends at school at Freed-Hardeman. And although we had not really been together a long time, Rachel's family was very kind to me. They invited me home with her for Thanksgiving. And that involved a 9-hour drive from Henderson, Tennessee to Flatwoods, Kentucky, the very northern part of Kentucky. So we loaded up the car, and it was just to me, it was a very special time to get to know her. We laughed about stuff. We listened to music, stopped for lunch. We talked about friends and things that were important to us. And outside of like being with our friends, this was the most intimate time we had spent together, just the two of us in one sort of confined space in a car. And so we arrived at Thanksgiving at her parents' house, and there was like 40 people there.
We got there like Thanksgiving Day, middle of the dinner.
Yeah, middle of the day. I didn't know any of these people. It was chaos. But I could tell that everyone was very, as soon as I showed up, they didn't know me. I'd never met any of her family. They were all incredibly kind and welcoming. And I could tell just within the first probably few hours that many of the things that I loved about Rachel, I could see in her family. They were generous. They were incredibly proud of her. Right, she was a scholarship athlete on the soccer team and the honors college. And at that point, I was just glad to be in college. And so I felt like I was like, definitely outkicked my coverage. And then I met these people who were incredibly proud of her, but cared about her success, her spiritual well-being. And we spent, the next few days, like going to her grandparents' house, playing cards late at night around the table. And something about just that trip itself solidified for me. We've been together a couple months. I was like, I have to do whatever it takes. I have to marry this woman. And if I heard an 18-year-old say that now, I would say that's really risky. So I'm not saying this is advice. This is just what happened. But when you're sort of in that moment, And I saw her family. I said, I want these people to be my family. And so we went on dating for about 3 years. And then we did end up finally getting married. Do you have anything you want to say about this trip, or?
No, you left out the most exciting parts. Like when he walked in, my huge family gathering, the furniture was all moved off the floor, and they were having a moonwalking competition. And my grandmother and my cousin were up there moonwalking, and I'm just like mortified. We're walking into this, like, this is my family, and he's still wanting to marry me. So there you go.
Yeah, it was a lot to take in.
which I think speaks to how great you are, too.
Yeah, her grandmother's definitely got the moves still. She could moonwalk across the floor. But yeah, I mean, and we've had this conversation a lot, like of all the moments that I would say are the most impactful in our relationship. It was that first trip home, because I went from this person I really liked to like, I saw a family that I wanted to be a part of, and I saw everything good that I loved about her I could see reflected in her family. And I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't put like a devotional application per se, but it reminds me a lot of like when you fall in love with Christ, you come to Christ in faith, you're baptized and you're received into the church. The thought is that you don't just get Christ, but you get a family. And how fortunate we are if when we come to Christ and we're received into a church, that we receive that family, that we see the love of Christ reflected in them. And I know that's not true of everyone's marriage. They may not hit it off with their in-laws, or they may not, when they come to Christ, have a great experience initially in the church. But really, that's, I think, the hope, that when we do fall in love with Christ, we receive a family, and we feel the love reflected in them that we feel in our beloved. And now we have Ivy, and she's a lot of fun, and she really wanted to come up here.
You want to say hi?
Hi.
This is Ivy.
So that's our story. There's not much to it, but wanted to share it with you, thankful to share it with you, and happy Valentine's Day.
I'm Daryl, and this is my wife, Portia. No, I'm Mike.
I'm Angie.
We're the Manleys, the lesser Manleys, the younger Manleys.
The lesser.
Definitely not the lesser. That was, no. So the title of our story, our chapter, is that right? Our chapter is, we talked about this, we tried to come to some consensus on this, but we decided on the honeymoon isn't over if you never went on it to begin with. We got married in 2017, and at the time, when I moved down here, it was pretty chaotic. I was carrying the mortgage on my house in Tallahassee and the house here, and was in between work, and looking for a new job, and we got married and moved in, and life took off pretty quickly, as it tends to do.
We had 2 kids. I had 2 kids, and so they were in elementary school and middle school, and so life doesn't stop, like, just because of, personal things. Like, they still had to go to school every day, and we still had projects, and lots of life was happening.
And we got married in October. It was football season. It was just chaos. And so we put off our honeymoon, thinking we'd get around to it eventually. And every year was going to be the year that we finally went on our honeymoon. And time kind of went on. I started a new job, started a new business. Wyatt came along. We had that whole COVID thing that happened for a while. Seems like every year something kind of got in the way. And we finally got to the point where we'd saved up enough money to go on a really nice trip, and we decided, well, the kids are getting older, we should probably go on a family vacation, which was not a honeymoon.
It's always a honeymoon when you have 3 children and your mother-in-law along with you.
That's right. We took my mother with us, too.
Which she was great.
Yeah, she was probably the only wife that would feel that way, but that's, yeah. And so we planned this really not extravagant, but pretty involved trip that involved flying all the way to the West Coast, to the Pacific, San Francisco, and then driving our way back up through Tahoe and Yosemite and through the desert, and we saw, who did we see in Vegas?
Who?
Yeah, David Copperfield.
Oh.
I say that because for some reason Bailey got in her head that his name was Tommy Kapperheim. And then insisted that no one had ever heard of this guy before, because she'd been asking around, and we said there was a famous magician. She was like, no one's ever heard of this Tommy Kapperheim guy. There was a reason. But, you know, we put together this great trip, and we thought it was going to be wonderful, and it was.
And Mike had like the itinerary down, like to the hour, basically. I mean, he had so many amazing things packed in. It was incredible. I have never planned anything like that. It was really good.
Again, it was not a honeymoon.
No. But it was great, and so we were super excited about it. And I'd never been to California before, so this was a dream of mine.
I'm pretty sure you'd been to Colorado once, but no one else, aside from my mom and I, had been west of the Mississippi.
Right.
So this was a pretty shocking trip for everybody, an awe-inspiring trip. So we start this trip off with a flight, and we actually flew on Breeze Airways. This is like one of the first flights that Breeze was doing out of Tampa, and so we got it really cheap, but like we ended up flying like first class, like best fare. So the first time these kids flew, they were flying in the front of the plane in big like seats all the way to the West Coast. They didn't get used to that. And we got to the airport, and even though I'd called the day before and reserved, because we were going to get a 15-passenger van, because we were going to be doing a lot of driving with my mother. So I go to get the van to come back, and it was about what, 5-6 hours later? Yeah, Avis was not on the ball that day. So the trip started off with a little bit of a snag, and then we were in the car for 4 or 5 hours to get to the first place we were going to stop that night, and we were all exhausted, and then, you know, we spent a couple of days in Tahoe. It was wonderful. It was beautiful, and then we went further on through the trip, and Wyatt threw up in Death Valley, and then we got a flat tire in the middle of the desert. There's a lot of fun there, too. And so that ended up changing the whole, and our van was a whole other story to begin with. The van that we actually got 5 hours later after getting to Avis, it was Angie's favorite part of
The van is still an issue. The van it sounded like a turkey driving down the road. It was so loud and rattly, it would go woo, 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 like the whole way home, or the whole way. And so we had to use pliers to turn on the air. The car seat was expired, so we had to buy a new one. It was a nightmare.
It was held
a
together with
nightmare.
more duct tape than anybody should have been comfortable with.
Then it finally died right outside of Death Valley.
And then we got a van just in time for us to be at the end of the trip. But Avis dropped the ball on that one. There's a very strongly worded Yelp review, if you ever want to go and look at that. But we got to the end of this trip, and we looked back then flying home.
No, okay, let's just skip.
No, then flying home, we ended up staying an extra night in North Carolina, and there were a lot of parts of the trip that we were like, man, this could have ruined the trip. But then we'd stop back, and when we think about that trip, when we talk about it, the only things we remember was like how blue the water was in Tahoe, like how beautiful it was in Yosemite, how much fun we had, and we just remember all the brighter parts of the trip. And even though it was definitely not a honeymoon, there were a lot of memories that we made that will last forever, and we spent a lot of time together as a family. And the more that we kind of thought about that and have thought about that over the years and talk about it, the more it kind of occurred to us that like that's life. Like it is a tremendous roller coaster. There are ups and there are downs, and the fact that we get to do it together is what makes it worthwhile. And that we make the memories, the good and the bad, and we keep them both. And we love them both equally, maybe not at the time, but in retrospect. We appreciate them. And that's really what it's all about. And we're happy to do that life together. And as long as we can do it together, we can handle whatever the world dishes out. And there certainly is a lot of application when we think about our relationship with our Father and the family we have here in that. But personally, I'm hoping that this year's the year we finally get to go on our honeymoon. So.
Well, Mike has already introduced us. I'm Daryl.
I'm Portia.
I'm gonna let her tell her perspective because she says mine is
Because mine is the only one that's right. Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
We'll begin.
Okay. All right. So we met.
What's the chapter?
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm a big picture guy. I don't know. Our chapter is entitled "Love Is Blind." Okay. So we met in 2004 over the phone. My cousin was married to a guy that Daryl was working with. And Daryl is this, young, handsome, single guy that my cousin does not want her married husband to be hanging around. And so she says, well, I think I have somebody that I want you to meet. She's thinking, I got to get this guy married because, And so she's like, I have this cousin. She had actually just had a baby not too long before that, and she was down in Florida because they were from Georgia. Well, so they lived in Georgia, and Daryl's from Georgia. And she was talking about this guy, and she said she wanted me to meet him. I was like, I'm sick of guys. Guys are stupid right now. I'm just, I'm over it. Like nothing is working out. I had graduated from Florida, and I had moved back home with my mom and my stepdad, partially because I was heartbroken. And I'm there, and I can remember having a conversation with my stepdad, and I'm like, I just really, it's time for my life to start. I want to get married. I want to have babies. I want to do all of that stuff, and it's just not happening. And I was like, all I do is go to work, and I go to church, and it's just not happening. Why is it not happening? And I would see all of my friends around me, getting married, and they were dating, and everything was and I was just like, why is this not happening for me? And there were many, many nights that I was like face down praying for this person and these babies that I didn't know to come into my life. And I had a conversation with my stepdad one day, and I was like, I want to get married. He's like, I know you want to get married. And I said, he's like, and it's gonna come. You just have to be patient. And I was like, okay, well, how is it gonna come? Like, because we lived in Mount Dora, and I'm like, who's gonna find me here? Because if anybody has ever been to Mount Dora, it's not, it's not the place for young singles. It's just not. And I said, who is gonna find me here? And then one day, the phone rang, and it was him. He found me there. She gave him, my cousin, she asked me if she could give him my number, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. That part.
They showed him a picture of this wonderful, beautiful girl, and he said, I have to call her, right?
It was actually another girl. They showed me a picture of another girl, and at the time, I was like, I was in her shoes. I was kind of over women. I'm like, I'm sick of these women. They're counting my money. They're getting mad because I don't have a business card to hand out. And I'm like, I just want to go on a date. Why do I have to have a business card to go on a date? And so I was kind of over women too. And so lo and behold, he shows me this picture. Well, her cousin shows me a picture, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's okay.
It wasn't of me. It was
another young lady, and I was like, I'm okay. I'll be all right. Okay, finish your
Okay. I thought you were taking over. I didn't know. Okay, so we talk on the phone for like a month, and it was the craziest thing because in that month, I was like, I feel like I love this guy, and this is weird. Like, it was hard to admit that to people because you feel stupid because you're on the phone. But like, we talked.
We had never seen each other.
Yeah, we talked so much, and we just talked about everything. And I was like, I feel like I love this guy. Like, this is crazy. So, end of July of 2004, he was actually working 2 jobs, and he came down. He was so tired and sleepy, but he got off work one night and came straight down and had to meet my entire family the same time that he met me. Which, good Lord. So he came down. We met July 31st was the first day we met. And we were just kind of inseparable after that. I erased all the girls' phone numbers out of his cell phone. delete, delete, delete. Oh, this is your cousin? Delete. I
had a
And-
lot of cousins.
Yes, you did. And so that's July 31st. He left August 1st. We kind of went back and forth, you know, trying to see each other as much as possible. And we both knew that I was like, there is no shacking that's happening. So October 9th? October 9th of 2004, he proposed at my grandma's house in front of my whole family, even though I told him, please don't do that. Don't propose to me in front of people. Just do it when it's just us. But he did it anyway in front of my whole family. So met in July, engaged in October, married in May of 2005, and it was the best crazy decision that I've ever made. I hope it's the same for you.
Likewise,
it better
was, it was one of those things where you actually fall asleep in the bed on the phone. Like I literally fell asleep. She was still talking. I woke up. She's still talking. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it was those moments that I'm like, well, if I can fall asleep and not just say I'm going to bed, bye, and hang up, that, you know, this was somebody I can have a conversation with, somebody I see as a friend more
Half
than
of a
just
conversation
date.
if you went to sleep, I'm just saying.
Well, you were having a conversation with me. I
Okay.
heard it subconsciously. But as a friend, it was one of those moments in life where you'd be like, okay, this is a different type of friendship. It's a different type of relationship. It started off different. And that was one of the things that mattered the most to me, was that we could communicate. And communication it's always been so important to me. And being able to communicate with her was one of the things that said, you know what, I can marry her because we can communicate. We can talk. And we can share, you know, what's on our mind and our thoughts. So that's
and
how
we
I
literally never stop talking. It's the craziest thing. Like, even in the bathroom, it's disgusting, but we do it. Is that too much? I'm sorry.
20 years later? No.
Yeah.
We've been married. It'll be 20 years this May that we've been married. We've been together for 20 years now. But it has been a great 20 years. It's been a fast 20 years. And we've gotten 2 kids out of it. And Mike, I have not had my honeymoon yet either, so continuation of your chapter. So we took a family vacation. I haven't gotten a word in edgewise either. So hey, we're right there together. So it's something for that, something to be said, So that's to be continued. So our chapters continue in this book, in this love story book, and that's our story.
Yep.
I want to see you.
Shows that I set the timer now.
I told her she had to set a timer.
I'm serious, y'all think I'm joking. Like, Jeremy don't talk.
Okay, my name is Jeremy Shelton
And my name is Jennifer, but I go by Jen Shelton.
with one N.
Yes, one N, not two.
It'll be 20 years that we've been married in May.
Yep.
And every time I tell somebody that, they say, wow, how old did you get married? 5? And the title of our chapter is going to be, Welp, I Didn't See That Coming.
See that coming?
So most chapters have different varieties in it, and it's going to be a couple of different things that we're going to talk about. But just to kind of set the stage, I met Jen at Harding, and you had this young guy that wasn't expecting to be married, wasn't looking for anything serious, didn't even want to be at Harding. My dad just said I had to go because I didn't get scholarships or anything like that. So he said, this is where you had to go. And I was sitting around the dorm as guys sit around and we chit-chat and we talk, and we had a book full of all the girls, and we're looking at all the girls in the book. And I'm like, who's that? And this guy in the room, he's like, oh, that's Jen, she's from Massachusetts, stuff like that. And he was like, everybody tried to talk to her. She's never had a boyfriend. I looked at my friend, I was like, I could date her. That'd be easy. Her brother went back and told her. She didn't like me at all after
A
that.
rough start, guys. It was a
So
rough
I
start.
go into Bible class, and I didn't know it was her brother. I go into Bible class, and her brother comes up to me, ooh, and I'm like, what? He said, you in trouble. I'm like, what'd I do? I studied for my test. I did good. I'm not doing anything wrong. And he's like, my sister's mad at you. And I'm like, who's your sister? And he's like, Jen. I'm like, oh, that's your sister. He's like, yeah, I told her what you said, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. So we're at a football game. So I was like, so now I'm like, this is a challenge. So I'm all games to go
This
now.
is right up his alley, guys. This is right up his alley.
So I go up to her. She's in the library. I go up to her, and I'm trying to just have a just typical conversation with her.
Well,
She-
first of all, you just missed a whole other part. Jeremy's an identical twin.
Oh, yeah,
okay?
that's right. I am an identical twin.
So when he came in, as soon as he came in, I was like, I know it's him. So like right off the bat, I could tell the difference
Mm-hmm.
between the two of them. Like we had never had a conversation, but I knew which one was which. So go ahead, you can.
Yeah, which was weird
I just
to
knew it.
begin
You guys
with.
look
The
like
fact that she
brothers.
could tell us apart, so we couldn't play tricks on her like we've done in the past. Anyway, so I go into the library. She's in there, and I just approach her, just trying to talk to her, and she's like, "Nope."
I'm a norther guys, so like
Yeah,
you tried to
and
look,
I'm
it's
like,
fine. It's
I'm
fine.
like, that's rude. So we go to the football game, and so granted, I'm down, I'm up the top bleachers. She's down below. So I'm like, no, other way around. She's up top, I'm down below.
Other way
Whichever way. Anyway, the football game is this way. I knew she was
That's why I was telling you.
interested because she's supposed to be watching the game. She's turning around. Our eyes keep making this eye contact. So I'm like, that's green light. So
Till
after
this
the
day,
game,
this is still an argument, guys. This is still an
after
argument.
she said she was looking at something back there, but the game was that way. So after the game, I go up to her and I'm still trying to talk. She's like, no. I'm like, man, this girl's tough.
No, you missed like a whole chunk of it.
Well, just for time's sake, we're gonna keep going. So I asked for her number.
Yep.
And she wouldn't give it to
I
me.
shot him down.
But we had like a directory.
Y'all.
I just found the name and called her. You know, that wasn't gonna stop me, so she wouldn't give me the number, so I called her anyway. And eventually she came around. She seen that I was semi-nice. I was a pretty decent guy. So she told me her parents was coming down, and I was like, that's
y'all.
it. I gotta win the parents over. Mom fell in love with me. She got stuck in my car, but she fell in love with me. So long story short, to kind of get into what exactly we were talking about, finally we started dating, and that's when I didn't expect going to Harding to find a wife. I didn't expect to find someone that would support me. I came from a family where affection and stuff like that we didn't do. We didn't say we love each other. Church was involved, but it was just awkward. We basically show affection whenever it was like a funeral or when it was as needed. It wasn't on just hey I love you. And then I meet her family and it's like hey love you guys, hugging and they're kissing, and I'm like, this is awkward. Families do this, and I'm like I want to be a part of this. And then they started giving me that, and I'm like, okay, this is weird. And you know, I'm starting to want to go to church because she's going to church, and it's just like I'm like, okay, this is the person that's making me better. So I didn't expect that to happen with her. So fast forward, I'm like, okay, let's get married.
Fast forward, it was 9 months.
Yeah, fast forward.
That
That's
was a
fast
big
forward.
fast forward.
I'm like, let's get married. She's like, you got to talk to my dad. And I'm like, no problem. He's going to like me. Which he of course, he didn't. I'm not saying he didn't have a problem with it because he thought that we were young, which we were. But he was okay with, you know, the whole concept or whatever. And then we had a couple of situations that happened.
Yep, literally 9 months before we got married, we got a phone call from a hospital that we hadn't heard of. My dad was a flight attendant at the time, and the hospital let my mother know that my father had had a massive heart attack, and we needed to fly to Ohio to be there because they didn't know how much longer he was going to be there. So at the time, just so happened, Jeremy was in Massachusetts visiting, and he's like, you guys go, I'll stay here and man the fort, while you're gone to figure out what's going on. We had no details, we just know he had a massive heart attack. So we go to Ohio, we're trying to get questions answered and whatnot. It was really, really, really difficult at the time. And then I'm trying to communicate things to Jeremy about what's going on as well. It's touch and go. And legit the same day that the nurses were telling us that was it, Jeremy walks through the door of the hospital. He had caught a flight with my uncle and got there and was there right on time, like before my dad had passed away. Hardest thing ever, but we definitely didn't see that coming at all.
So when we titled it, we didn't see that coming, was because I haven't been married yet, didn't know what to expect, but life was still lifing already, and it was showing me how to support and be there, and to be able to go through something like that prior to being married, before we even started our lives, and to look across the room and to be able to support her and vice versa through such a tough time, it prepared us for what was to come. So at the time going through it, didn't understand it, asking a lot of whys. Years later, being married and staying up late nights talking, we're kind of like, okay, this helped us, prepared us for whatever the situations that came forward. Fast forward, now we're married, and the wedding was amazing. I was how old was I? 20, and the guy in the limo trying to offer me champagne.
That was hilarious. Jeremy's like, I'm not even old enough.
I'm like, I'm not old enough. And again, we had another situation where, it was like, well, we didn't see that coming. We wanted to start a family. And 3 years later, 3.5 years later, we're still trying to start this family. And then we had Ace, and was a blessing. Yeah. And it's never, you never can be prepared for when you have expectations of how you want your kids to be, and then God blesses you with something completely different because He knows what's best for you as a family. And playing sports and stuff like that, I always talk to Jennifer. I was like, first kid we're gonna have is gonna be a boy.
Legit, guys, like his entire nursery was full of sports stuff. Like,
I'm like Lakers stuff. He's gonna be a basketball player. I worked my whole life. I didn't play basketball for a school. He's gonna play basketball. Everything that I couldn't do, he's gonna do, and I'm gonna make sure of it. And then we have Asen, and Asen's like, nah, I'm good. Give me my iPad, I'll chill. Like, I don't even want to think about sports. But so much has been learned from Asen in how it helped mold us to be the couple that you guys see in front of you. Asen is a man of few words, but has so much to say. And the nights that a lot of people say, oh, we never get to date, anymore. Life's so busy, we have kids and stuff like that. And I'm like, me and Jen stay up late and we date because Asen's up running around because he feels like he's a zombie, he can't sleep. So it's like in times when people are complaining about having dates, we're like, we spend so much time together in conversation. Sometimes we're like, man, we rather be sleeping, but we start seeing those blessings. We start seeing that God was at work the whole time. He knew the type of kid that we needed to have. He knew what would keep us grounded. He knew what would keep us focused on each other and not stray away from our marriage or look anywhere else for any other things, because Asen kept us glued together. He's a lot to handle sometimes. Asen's a big kid. Asen's a big kid. But we wasn't prepared for those moments, and they snuck up on us, but we wouldn't change any of it, because it's exactly who we want to be.
Yep.
What's
You did
next?
good. No, you pulled an audible on me, but that's okay.
So just to kind of like wrap it up and just give you guys what we were kind of thinking. We know that life is gonna happen no matter what. Life is gonna, yep, that's my timer.
Yep.
All right, Jeremy, wrap this up. Life is gonna happen no matter what. And
We can't plan for anything.
we can't plan for
As much as I am
anything.
a planner, like, we just don't know, and God has other plans for us.
And she is a planner. Like, when we was preparing for this, she was like, what's gonna say? I'm like, let's just have a conversation with me. Let's just talk. She's like, well, you're gonna talk too much. I said, yeah, but it's okay. Somebody might end, it might end sooner, and then we'll have enough time. But anyway, life is gonna always happen. Situations are gonna happen. And the biggest thing that we've learned in this chapter of our life is that God is always working behind the scenes. We might not understand it. We've asked questions of why we had to go through things, but looking back, I don't think we would change
I think it molded us.
Yeah, I don't think we would change anything that has happened to us since we've been together, just because, again, it's created the two people that you guys see in front of you. And our testimony is our testimony. And a lot of people, a lot of couples are scared to share that testimony, and that it hasn't been all roses. But our testimony is so powerful, and we're not afraid to share it. And we want to encourage other people to share that. In those moments that we were like, man, we didn't see that coming, are those moments you got to embrace. And I feel like we embraced them, and it was more along the lines of, hey, how can we get through this? Not like, this is what we're going to do because I'm in the position to tell you this is what we're going to do. Because you know what? The way you see things is not the way I see things. And that has really helped us get through a lot of things. And we're going to have way more. Web didn't see that coming, didn't see those coming moments. But I'm looking forward to them because I get to share them with this person that you guys see beside me. Lover I don't even know where I would be without her. Like, it's just, God knew what he was doing.
Waiting on somebody.
I was still in the library waiting on her. As a matter of fact, I had a rubber band and I went up to her and I put a rubber band on her finger and I was like, I'm gonna marry you. She was like, this guy's psychotic. Like, but I just, when she told me no, I knew it. I'm like, okay.
Because he said nobody had ever turned him down. I was like, well,
I
I'm the
chose
first.
wisely. I chose 100% people that I knew that would say yes prior to you. I guess I didn't challenge myself
didn't think
much.
about it.
But that is our story.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys and couples. Well, that was a lot of fun. I don't know if you're like me. I sat listening to these stories, and I started thinking about all the chapters in my own Valentine's story and those special chapters. Every love story is a good story, but I want to wrap up tonight with what I think is the best chapter of the best love story. And they didn't use notes, but I'm going to use notes here. I'm going to read something. And I've entitled the chapter of this story, Unconditional Love. It goes like this. The soldiers brought Jesus to Golgotha, meaning Skull Hill. They offered him a mild painkiller, but he wouldn't take it. They nailed him to the cross. They divided up his clothes and threw dice to see who would get them. They nailed him up at 9 o'clock in the morning. The charge against him, King of the Jews. Along with him, they crucified two criminals, one to his right, the other to his left. People passing by the road jeered, shaking their heads in mock lament. You bragged that you could tear down the temple and then rebuild it in 3 days. Show us your stuff. Save yourself. If you're really God's son, come down from the cross. The high priest, along with the religious scholars, were right there, mixing it up with the rest, having a great time poking fun. He saved others, but he can't save himself. Messiah, is he? King of Israel, is he? Then let him climb down from the cross. We'll all be believers then. Even the men crucified alongside him joined in the mockery. At noon, the sky became extremely dark. The darkness lasted 3 hours. At 3 o'clock, Jesus groaned out of the depths, crying loudly, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you abandoned me? Some of the bystanders who heard him said, listen, he's calling for Elijah. Someone ran off, soaked a sponge in sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, let's see if Elijah comes to take him down. But Jesus, with a loud cry, gave his last breath. At that moment, the temple curtain was ripped down the middle. When the Roman captain standing guard in front of him saw that he had quit breathing, he said, "This has to be the Son of God." All the love stories that you heard, all the love stories that we think about when we think about our own chapters, our love story, are only possible because of that chapter, of that love story. You know, the Apostle John said it, we love because he first loved us. And all these things that these people shared, all the things that we could share together about the love that we have is because we have been blessed with such unconditional love. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part. I want to end with a prayer. And then we're going to go next door and eat some chocolate and enjoy some fellowship as well. But bow your heads with me. Father, when we talk about love, we do it so imperfectly because we love so imperfectly. And yet we look to your perfect love, your perfect example, the way that you gave the very best that could be given to help us have a relationship with you. And Father, as we share stories together, as we share our lives together, as we share our love together, may we be ever thankful for the grace and the mercy and the sacrifice that was made on our behalf. We're going to enjoy some fellowship right now. We're going to share some dessert, and I pray that you'd bless the food that we're about to share. Be with us tonight as we just share together, and then as we travel back home, I pray that you keep us safe. Thank you for Jesus. It's in his name that I pray. Amen. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all of you who brought chocolate. I have been told there is a whole lot of chocolate next door. So let's go eat chocolate. To Dad.